Hey everybody, this is Petey from the Spinner Rack, and today I'm doing a video about the John Byrne run on the Fantastic Four and the companion titles that go along with it. Right now, we're going to sit through and go through all 63 or 61 issues. No, there's also the annuals. So there's like 3 annuals, so it's like 64 issues of the Fantastic Four. There's like 22 issues of the Thing that he did, or 23. And then there's also Silver Surfer issue that he did. All right, a one shot that was supposed to be within this, within the that was supposed to be within the Fantastic Four comic book. We have the last Galactus story, and we also have, she was a member of the FF at the same time. So this is all the stuff we have to read right now. Now I'm kidding. There's no way we're gonna get through all of that in a reasonable amount of time. So we're just gonna do an overview, and this is gonna be like the other series that we can keep going on that I have yet to finish, like Superman and the X-Men and some of the other stuff. I think the George Perez Silver Surfer, if there was any interest out there. We're going to continue to do stuff like this, right? So I've kind of broken up this, and as you've seen it, right? So right now we're going to really only deal with the Fantastic Four series and the Thing, because I read some of the Thing series when I was a teen, but I didn't have the whole run, and it was eye-opening when I got the whole series. And I'd already read this, like after Byrne left the book, I read the entire run in one not one sitting, but over a couple of days. And it was like, wow, the only thing is missing is some more Thing. And then when I read this, I guess 20 years later, it was like, wow, that's the parts of the Thing that I was missing. Really getting into the Thing's head, right? So let me give you a brief history. You know, this history is never that brief, right? But I shall try. First and foremost, John Byrne was working on many titles. At one point, the Fantastic Four was one of them, but his big claim to fame was the X-Men. This is one of the storylines that kind of put them over the top, even with the Phoenix. The Days of Future Past was pretty big for them, right? So at that point, while doing the X-Men, Byrne talked to Shooter saying he wanted to write a title, and Doug Bench was leaving the FF, so that was the title that Byrne was thinking about doing. Now, initially, one of the points, since Byrne had already done it, they kind of knew what they were kind of getting, and this is like, originally it was supposed to be like for an insert that Byrne did this story, and they wound up not using it, saying it was too scary, even though not much happens. They put this into the regular series. So Byrne actually wrote 2 issues before he actually started writing, right? And these are just sort of it doesn't really have his complete approach, and also the how bulky the characters are. You can see this was kind of within the Sinnott style, because at the point, even though you'd think it would be like kind of curvy, Sinnott became kind of the person continuing the look of the FF. So there's similarities as it was going along. It kept it consistent, because Marvel had many finishers at that time. So at this point, Byrne and Sinnott was doing, they did this, and it's really much in that style. It obviously, you can see, was very different from the X-Men inking, but at the same time, as a kid, you don't really care about that. You know, it's like I was buying X-Men. If I saw this, I would have bought this, right? So Shooter kind of knew what he was kind of getting when he got the what's the name, if we get Byrne on the FF. And Byrne was pretty hot at the time, right? So here we have this kind of the year this all happened, right? So you kind of see before that Byrne was doing, got to have put the Fantastic Four kind of in the middle. He was doing sort of the classic thing of this time, similar to here, right? You can see when it gets to here, it's a little different, right? So, and he actually put the Fantastic Four in the middle. I mean, the 20th anniversary, Fantastic Four was one of the first, so they should get the light. Usually, you'd put Spider-Man, the Hulk, Captain America in there, and because I think in one of them they have them on the cover as the, like the 1776 to 1976 thing. So this one, it was cool, but you kind of see the Reed is a little bulky here. The collar is pretty wide, which is cool, but I think at one point the collar was very thin when it came to some other people. So you could see what Shooter really was expecting to get from Byrne's Fantastic Four, right? And one of the first hurdles was that we can see the inking on this cover is by Terry Austin also. Terry Austin would leave, right? So Byrne was tasked to ink this by himself. So that would be his first hurdle because there were too many books in the drawer for Terry to do at once. So he was like, that's not how you do it, and kind of left. And just went to do the covers, and at some point Byrne took over the covers, inking the covers himself. And at some point, people would compare this inking to this inking and say, he's gone down in quality. So that would be the second hurdle, being the fans. The fans would be like wanting more X-Men and notice that there's a different type of line that Byrne was doing. This is a really clean for him in comparison how he started early on, but people would just want this. They'd be like this or nothing else, right? Even though they were kind of changing and becoming different sort of artists in their own right? So since we got to the first hurdle, one of the things that we can showcase here is that when you look at this cover here, the FF kind of like regular superheroes, the same way Spider-Man and Captain America, bulky heroes. The only place that kind of feels like regular cloth is sort of the trunks here. Here, you can see this is inked by Terry Austin, but he was keeping the feel that Byrne's pencils had, where these feel like actual clothing. They're not like it's sort of painted on them. It's kind of loose fitting, and you get to see Byrne do it when he inks himself. It's even looser, so it's less like the other heroes here, even Iron Man, that have these form-fitting outfits. The FF would have like regular clothing, but looking a little more dynamic, of course. And this is going back to what Kirby had early on. Now, to give you a feel of what that is, since we're just giving you an overview of this, we're not going to go too far, I don't think we are, but that can always change, right? So if we look at that, we compare it to this cover, right? So this is ultimately what Byrne was always trying to do. Get back to the first 20 issues. And that would be the third hurdle, that he was trying to turn the clock back on the FF, getting back to those first 20 issues. Not necessarily going back in time, but when most people were like, no, don't even suggest it, and they turned it into Byrne was actually going back to the 60s, and that he shouldn't do that. And what pitch does everyone say now? The FF can only come out of the 60s, right? So this was a thing that pros were, this would be that third hurdle will continue with other issues on that, but trying to get back to this feel where all his thing looks like actual clothing, even though it's unstable molecules. It's keeping with the fact that this is like a top. Here's same with Sue. Johnny would look like that, but when he's flamed on, it would be like form fitting. And the thing you can see here, he's not the full starfish mode, but this is kind of how Kirby was drawing him in this period. So you can see, if you go to the thing here, he's kind of doesn't have regular muscles. He's kind of like a starfish. You can see the bridge here is more similar to this, but it kept when keeping that the fact that his eyebrows had kind of spread out as far as, you know, in the Kirby run. So he would keep some of that, but it was kind of, this is a little less oatmeal, more like kind of like stone, or you know, the rocky plates. So this was keeping the rocky plates from this period, but keeping the loose form where he could at times would have muscles, but ultimately his shape would be different. So you can see he's trying to get to that. We have it inked by Terry here. There should be some other covers that we can show that, but okay. So I think, so the first plus going into Byrne's run is the art. Obviously, since Byrne was hot to death at that period doing the X-Men, let's give you another X-Men glimpse, right? To kind of tell you where he was at during this period, right? Here we go. This is where he was kind of leaving. They redrew Wolverine's outfit to be the original one, or the one that was in the X-Men, Giant Size X-Men. This is where he was at with the X-Men. At some point, X-Men was supposed to come back. Ultimately, Byrne left. They kicked out Angel, right? So this is where he was at. And going here, going to the Fantastic Four would just take his celebrity. I mean, almost trying out his celebrity, but the Fantastic Four wasn't a title that was struggling as of yet. But this kind of pushed it up to, I think the readers jumped in as far as maybe 50,000. But you can already see here, they kind of slimmed down here. His Reed isn't, you know, even though he has some muscles here, it's kind of slimmed down. Torch here. And where else can I go to? So, one of the things that I said it already, pointing out the costume, this him going back to where Kirby had it, these wide collars, and you know, trying to get back. This is really making Kirby look cool, right? It's saying that because for a while the FF outfits, outside of looking at here with the wide collars, going back to them being kind of their you know, sort of, they just look a little more dynamic that way, rather than trying to compete with all these heroes that have all these bells and whistles on them. And instead of trying to make them skin tight like them, he went to saying, let me try to make them like real clothing rather than that. And I think it made it pop, right? So you have it, you can see some of these covers here, especially here you can see the folds and whatnot. This is kind of the first one I bought, and this, oh, I had my mother buy. I think I bought this one though. I think I bought that in the store. And this one would be a shock for me because, like, see here, you see that he's really stressing that it's like real clothing, right? That's one of the things that makes these outfits pop, and I think Michael Golden picked up on that when he did his his poster for the Marvel Universe. And this subplot here is leading to some good stuff here. But then with the harsh difference, you see Terry Olsen's the inker, and as a kid, I could tell that this was the X-Men guy, but Byrne was inking here, so it's kind of like, why is this different? Since, you know, this is the guy who did the cover. The cover looks pretty similar to the insides, but then some shots, like here, it looks like, I'm just saying, maybe it should have been inked by the guy who did the front. But, you know, as a kid, as a crabby kid, that's how you are, right? So, we got that. So now, since his, obviously since he's doing the X-Men and art is such a big deal, him bringing his art to the Fantastic Four is only to the good, right? Now, I've broken this up between the portion with the Thing, the portion with She-Hulk, and the Thing by himself, right? So we're going to cover the next portion. So I don't know if we're going to be able to get into the actual characters much. So we're going to try to stick to the overview. But I haven't figured the issue to do next. That would be a good showcase for this sort of thing, right? So let's try this, right? Now this would be kind of similar to the original Galactus saga, right? And but how he would start, and you see similar to how a novel starts or a TV show starts. We'd start kind of not. Sometimes we would start not even on the Fantastic Four, and this is kind of a thing that well, she was already introduced in the series, but some point Byrne would start using characters that weren't even introduced and start the story off that way, similar to how you watch a television show. You'd be introduced to a character that's not a superhero. And now it would have been easy for Byrne to kind of take a list of all the Fantastic Four villains and do every story, come up with a story for them to fight and, down the list. But one thing that he was doing is trying to do actual stories, not just do, hey, okay, he's going to fight this guy next and that guy next. Instead of villain of the month, he was really trying to craft these sort of stories, right? So we start with Julie Angel. We get an intro to her character. She's probably a dancer, right? So you got this sort of thing. And we pop in, and this was a shock to me because I didn't know. I thought it was a onesie, and in actuality, you see the FF's top outside of his the sort of belt area, right? So we have this sort of at home moment, and I don't think this is, as classic as this is, I could tell you that it gets a lot better than this, even though this is a classic look. I think Reed has Wolverine's, like the jacket that Wolverine has on, but no one would be like, oh, that's cool, right? So really having the Fantastic, getting back to what they were, where instead of, because one of the things that happened with the Kirby run, they had done and broken so much ground, and then they at times were repeating themselves. FF kind of got a little soft, and then when Kirby was gone, it kind of got to just kind of going through the motions, right? So one of the things that Byrne did was try to have the Fantastic Four interact. Instead of the Fantastic Four doing human stuff, the Fantastic Four would react with regular people in these regular situations, right? So there would be the realism of Marvel, but not just through them having to pay rent, this, that, and the other. It would be through their interactions, right? And this would ground them a lot more. Well, Johnny, and this is where I found that Johnny was kind of had some struggles, had not, and Johnny's a character that's kind of tough to do because there's nothing, you can't do a Dark Knight, you can't do something where, you cut off his arm and he does stories about his arm being broken. Johnny is something, character that stuff doesn't stick to. He's a character that is going to be you can have moments, but you can't kill yourself trying to have an arc where Johnny finds himself. He's just sort of a fun character, but you can have moments like this where he's kind of grief-stricken, he's struggling that his girlfriend is gone, and he's also struggling that he's had these heartaches with Crystal and whatnot, and he comes to Julie Angel, who was a friend of his and a friend of his girlfriend of the time, right? And we get overview. It's a classic story. Well, do I want to get... I said I was going to do the whole thing. So this would be something for later. But that was a cool way to start it. And this is one story. People forget that Cap was for saving Galactus. Reed was for saving Galactus. And Thor. Thing was iffy, but he'd follow Reed. And Iron Man was totally against it. So if they were going to put anyone on trial, they should have put a lot of these people on trial. But, you know, it is what it is, right? So that's to kind of show you, and I want to show you that again, because it's easy to show you the cosmic stuff. Like this is like one of my favorites here, but it's so easy to show you how cool that is, right? And I think the pros also, this not just Marv Wolfman and Ling Wen, even though Ling Wen said it was written beautifully, like Jim Shooter had struggles because he had, since the Fantastic Four was slimmed down and they weren't like this here, Jim Shooter was trying to sick John Romita on Byrne to tell him to do it like this, do it like the way Kirby did it, right? So what else we have here? Like this is a good, I mean, art-wise, I just want to do, I guess I won't do that. Oh, this is the easiest one to do in this run would be, I think I did it before once. I thought I did. That would be this issue, which is kind of like Sue was the character that Byrne adopted, that he was gonna try to give a little more light to, and we have her, as I said, seeing the Fantastic Four in human situations, getting this interview. He utilizes the interview to kind of get their history again. We have this rivalry with this Barbara Walters type character is kind of talking about her as a fifth wheel. Now this is, if someone reading this is like, so why are they saying that? Because people would write in and say this in the comic book. They got letters where she was sad that they were saying she was she wasn't a formidable part of the team, right? This is a great angle for it, right? And we have the flare go off, but the people so worried about their jobs, they don't tell Sue about it, right? She goes home as regular as you can get. This is what gives you the basis, right? So I don't know if you could do comics like this. You need to do like, I think Marvel Knights, Spider-Man Marvel Knights, where he fights a new villain, he beats the crap out of villains each issue, right? So here we have a mystery going on where, you know, Reed is a mess, Ben is knocked out. I should have gotten to the oatmeal thing, but I didn't do that yet. There's so much to cover, and they're getting this new adversary, right? And this new adversary is trying to figure out what's going on in their heads, but he can't figure it out. It says something's hidden, but she's looking at it and says, this guy's kind of having a tantrum here. But he can see her, right? You can hear her thoughts. So she runs away. He doesn't even need to use the door. She tries to fight him. He gets almost a biblical tunic. Realizes that there's some sort of force field. He's able to connect to her mind. But she's resourceful, right? And she goes in the Franklin room, and now she's upset. And the robot is, so she has all these cool things that she can do, right? To kind of slow him down. But then the TV people realize, hey, something's going wrong here. Let's go see what's going on. See her failing at her job. And they get there, they're blocked off, and they see a big explosion, and we see Sue get bounced out of the Baxter building, right? We got another cool moment where Sue creates kind of thing to catch herself, and it would be incredible to see in real life, right? And as she's waking up, and they're ready to call her on it, and the character stops him. And he uses power to fly down, and he sees the other woman, and he's kind of, I have a different feeling towards that woman. He said, tell me, and he finally asks it, and she looks in his eyes, and she realizes it's Franklin, right? And this is possibly one of the best character being turned into an adult story, because he's lashing out. He's doesn't understand. He's not asking the question directly, and then we have Sue, total change from grief, to eyes to here, right? So this is only an issue after the other one. It's really getting better. So it kind of explains how he got to that. But to point out in this story, there's so much plot in this story here that then Reed's able to figure it out, because she's like, move, get out the way, Sue. And he's like, no, this is Franklin, right? And Johnny says the best thing. He sounds like Reed trying to talk like a little kid. It must be zoo time inside his head. He said, probably no worse than yours, hotshot. And Alicia shows up, right? And then here we have the moment where Franklin decides he's going to fix his Uncle Ben, right? So here we have the oatmeal thing, which was cool for a period. I don't know where that comic book is, Fantastic Book 239, but he reaches in the head and there's some resistance. Now in the old comics, there was always resistance that Ben would have when he would when Reed would try to fix him. They'd point to, hey, he would say outright, Alicia loves me, and he would knock the cure out of Reed's hands, right? So this storyline, all of the plot, just how dense it is just really to get the thing back to this and set up this new subplot, right? Now this is almost leading me to go to the thing right after this, right? But you see here that was cool, and he turns back. Then this is where Byrne gets rid of the unibrow to just having a brow, right? All right, so it's kind of going back to what I think it was Steve Ditko that inked it and really kind of drew it like that first. And then Franklin's back to normal, because when he was aged himself, he was continuing to age, so he had to revert back, right? And then Ben asks, he said, he should have been able to save me. He said, nope, that's too powerful for him. And then Sue's like, no, he could do anything. He said he could have. But he realizes that there was a mental block in the thing, right? People kind of balk at that, but it's set up in the original series. That thing is struggling with this the entire time, right? So what else did I talk? I don't have the issue of Reed, the key issue for Reed, which is 255. I read it and brought it down here somewhere. I'm not sure where it's at, right? So I can't do that one. The other key one would be this one here, right? This one is where Reed kind of shows you he has just a strong will, and he goes up against the galaxy, and he turns a lot of them. He almost turns most of them to be, but it's not enough, and Galactus has to get involved, right? So ultimately, since I'm kind of skimming through this at this point, because I'm at the 20, almost 30 minute mark, right? I'm just going to give you a quick thing, because I've already pointed out that Reed has a strong will. Ben has this mental block that he's struggling with, which is set up even in issue 78 of the Fantastic Four. The Johnny is kind of, Byrne has done some heavy stuff with him, but nothing really can stick. He did Hero in this run of the issues, and it's not something that really can stick as being, something which is I'm fine with. When I saw, to give you an idea what I'm talking about, not this issue, but this is an important issue too, right? this issue here. This is Byrne, one of Byrne's favorite, right? I'm going to keep these next issues out for now. So I don't know if I want to get to the She-Hulk in this thing. So I've already done a bunch of She-Hulk, so, you know. But I haven't done too much. In the other one, I talk about her being in the Fantastic Four. In this issue, and this is what I was talking to you about. It starts the thing like with these characters that we don't know, right? So this is one step above Lean Wen, where Lean Wen would set up a new supporting cast for the Hulk in every issue, and usually start with the Hulk landing somewhere, and then he would walk into the town and start doing stuff, right? So this Miss Dr. Darling is kind of figure, and then we have this person who's deceased, and we get into the story. This fan of the Human Torch. You know, people struggle with Byrne's drawings of kids, but it's not that big a deal. I mean, come on. It's like, I mean, there are people who do it better. John Bogdanov, June Brigham, who else? Bob McLeod. Who else does really good kids? Arthur Adams. And who else? But those are like really the mainstay. So the only one that's really like a hot artist is Arthur Adams, who does great kids. But I mean, they're okay. Like that's fine, right? There's some that have been struggle, like they would say, like this one, where he looks like adult, like they're miniature adults. But a lot of artists have a hard time drawing kids, right? A lot of like Simonson, Perez. Who else? I can't remember who else. But they have moments like this one here, right? So you realize he gets busted with the Human Torch book and has to go, and he's upset. His kid is just into the torch, right? There's so much story here. This is the hardest thing that you probably couldn't do a story like this, because it's like, who is he fighting? Like, I don't want this. I need someone. This is always cool. The pencil art here, right? And kind of the latchkey kid thing where nobody's home to be watching him. So it sets up a perfect storm, struggling with bullies. There's so much stuff in here, right? And then tries to talk to the torch. And you see someone here. He finds some plane, and he sees some fuel. He tells him the wrong thing at the wrong moment. And we have the Human Torch flying in, meeting up with Reed. He's in their inverted costumes, which also help them to pop and look even better, right? Here's a cool shot of the Torch. It's inked by Al Gordon, who's famed for, I think he's wrote some Image comics, Wildstar, right? And this woman is coming to help to talk to the Torch about a kid who's in the Byrne unit. And the kid said, I did it to be like you. And this kind of breaks the Torch. And the parents are upset with him. And the Torch is ready to fly. And he's like, that's why the cover says it's not going to be a Torch anymore. And then he's sad. He's struggling. We have Alicia, who's his girlfriend at this time. We got another moment where he was sad. Now, we haven't talked about too much. He's only hinted about Nova, Frankie Ray, his girlfriend that left. So here, he's like he's struggling with it, and he can't be the Torch anymore. This was supposed to be the Doctor, but Jim Shooter said it had to be the Beyonder. It's a film pretty hard for that picture, the She-Hulk. And then next thing you know, the Beyonder takes him away, right? And he gets to see this kid who's a latchkey kid, and he's running around, and all he is interested in the torch. And he said he lived through you, right? Right. So to close the case on this. But then I bring this all up to you because what happens in this issue, these two issues, not mentioned at all. This issue, he says, read boring, right? So that's one of the things when you're a strong storyteller and you have a character like the Torch, even if you write the greatest story, you can't just kind of stamp it every issue like the way Stan would put footnotes to get people to read that issue. He just left it as is, and he would mention it, but as far as the Torch's character, he wouldn't stick, and that's the important thing because he's a, kind of a hot shot, and I don't want to say happy-go-lucky, but I'm just going to point out this cover because people say this is a bad one, but this at this point where he finally had the supporting cast of someone we didn't know on the cover, right? And the looming threat of Dr. Doom in the background. So it's kind of cool to kind of say, I'm going to sell this book on this unknown. So we're going to just quickly talk about the Thing series where Byrne was just kind of getting into the Thing's head. So it wouldn't be a space between spending his time, and he did deserve it. Instead of having like Marvel 2-in-1 Thing, we have a series where Thing finally gets his own series. Because at one point, he was so popular, but they gave the book to the Torch when, he deserves to have his own title. I mean, the Hulk couldn't hold on his title because people were like, he's kind of just a copy of the Thing. So this one's an interesting one, right? Because everyone complains about the storyline with what is it? The Alpha Flight storyline. Snowblind? This issue is called Mindscape, right? And we have a Ben Grimm stuck in all darkness, right? He doesn't know how he got there. He's been fighting his heroes that were mind control, and now he's stuck. And then you have this character say, Grimm is coming for you, and it looks like it's the Puppet Master. So, I am your death. I'm your master here. Right? And the Puppet Master's just beating the hell out of him. Right? So he kind of tells them how he got out of it, right? So the last time they met, they tricked him. He got the Fantastic Four, gave them their safe haven. And Dr. Doom seemingly his mind was able to transfer, even though his robot body was killed or destroyed, his mind was transferred into his clay that he's been working with, and he was able to become physical form, right? So he's just beating the hell out of the Thing. And just hammering him, right? And he said, Ben Grimm can't stop him. Not Ben Grimm. Not Ben Grimm. Only thing can stop him now. And right? You screwed up, Masters. So you forgot one thing, didn't you? You forgot one very important thing. Said he brought the fight into his head where he doesn't have to think about being an ugly orange monster. But you made me hurt too much, Puppet Master. You made me hurt so much that suddenly being a thing wasn't so bad. It was better than hurting, better than dying. Maybe I should thank you, Masters. Until now, I've always run away from being the things, always refused to face what I am, what I've become. Yeah, remind me to thank you, Puppet Master. Just not now. Puppet Master tries to get away. Then he realized that he's in the thing's head. This is what the thing realized. So, and this is cool. He didn't always follow the look. So this is why the cover is the thing in this dark sort of thing set up, right? Because in the side of his head, right? But then the Puppet Master decides he's going to leave him. He's going to be stuck in his head. And that's going to be it. But the thing fights through it. And he opens up and he gets out because his will is strong enough. But the only problem is, while he's been fighting in his head, he destroyed this long block. So it's a real fun, really nice story, right? And had some effects. So that's one of the strengths of this sort of series. So, but just really getting into Ben's head. I did that. I guess since I'm here, gotta do a She-Hulk thing, cause So let's do this one, right? I'm not gonna. At some point, I'm gonna do Pregnant Sue. At some point, I'm gonna do some more thing and Alicia stuff. I gotta watch our video that we already did. What else? Thing of Alicia. Here, right? She-Hulk, the Psycho Pirate has messed up the She-Hulk, and she is now subservient and working in these minds in the microverse. The microverse was originally from the Fantastic Four. And Al Gordon is welcome back here. He does gorgeous work. See all the workers. This guy is named after a writer that was given Byrne hell in the letter page. Right? And she's hungry, but she can't get any food. And she's just too weak-willed at this period because of the Psycho Pirate. The Psycho Pirate can mess up people's heads. Right? So here, and this character Dutta is just treating her terribly, even though he's obviously stronger than him. She can't fight back, right? So this woman comes up to him, to She-Hulk, and kind of talks about that she once ruled this land. She's from the early Fantastic Four. I think it says, nope, that doesn't say it there, right? They talk about her being the queen, but then the Psycho Man comes, right? Takes over, and she escaped. She kind of hid out in the mines. She was the only one that survived, and she kind of hid out. But she realized he's wearing the She-Hulk's wearing the clothes of the Fantastic Four, the people that saved him. So if she's a part of that group, she must have the same courage. So she's going to try to bring it out of him. See, it's a false fear. A lie implanted by the power of the Psycho Man, right? So while this is happening, Perla gets attacked by Dutta, right? Dutta sees this. They finally captured her. It says, he's going to treat her terribly, right? And at this point here, he knows the She-Hulk has no strength to fight back, right? So he's just laughing, right? So then Perla is just talking and saying, you must fight. Your fear, She-Hulk, you must fight. You must. You're one of the Fantastic Four. You have great strength, great courage. Fight, She-Hulk. Fight. Remember what you are. You must, right? And this is great because this character, her belief in the Fantastic Four is what drives the She-Hulk back out of this hell she's in, right? And then Dudley's about to take it out of the princess's hide, and She-Hulk takes his head off, right? And at this point, she's ready to crack some skulls, right? So she takes Perla back. Fantastic Four have escaped, but they can't find Psycho Man right now, right? So Reed is struggling. Sue kind of knows something is going on, so she kind of plays to the back. Reed goes away, and then Reed starts falling apart, right? Because the Psycho Man's here. Without his, armor, he's just messing with Reed. But Sue was invisible, and she took away his machine that makes people fear and all this other stuff, right? He tries to get it back. It's of no avail. She has him up, but she's not going to kill him. She's going to pay him back, right? Well, this one of the best shots here. She-Hulk is back to Sue. We have the Torch looking cool as ever. And you run in there and they said, who's that with you? And he said, you don't remember me? He said, that voice, Perla. Holy cow, it's you. It's been a long time. And she says, longer than I would have wished, my friend. He said, no matter but your friends, right? So she is already got the hots for the Torch still, right? And I was just like, all right, we've got Torch's new girlfriend. So that's what if I want to do at some point, because Perla, she just like, I barely remembered the story she was in, and she kind of just won me over, right? So Torch goes out there. This is good. What a great moment. We just start to take off, but then She-Hulk's ready to take care of business, and Sue's like, no, we don't have to do none of that, right? So since Perla is, still got the house for the Torch, Torch has to bring up that he has a girlfriend, which is Alicia. And she's still kind of complimenting him, and they realize that her headband came from the stuff that the Psycho Man used, so that's why she was able to fight back against it, right? But Perla really be making great. And at this point, Sue had been through so much in the last few issues, but she finally stands up and she becomes the Invisible Woman, right? So this wouldn't be the end chapter for Sue, but at the same time, Sue, how far are we? Ooh, this is pretty long, right? So at the same time, she would kind of, a lot of people complain that this is too much dialogue, but I mean, Iron Man got pretty much the same amount of dialogue for getting a new nose, right? So this is a quiet moment. So there's no reason why they can't be quiet as no action. So in these moments, there's no problem. Stan already showed you that you can fill up this with stuff, and Mad Magazine definitely showed you can pile it up. So I gave you a little bit of everything of the run, but the run is something that you can't really do again because comics have changed. And the closest, when Byrne tried to do something similar where he had the Hulk going into a town and they said, this is the TV show, no way. And it's like people had never read a Lean Win Hulk story. So kind of doing these stories where you don't have a adversary that looks like someone that has a colorful costume. then it's kind of against it. But he kind of just took what was in the first 20 issues, tried to keep that feel. He kind of went his own way, but he kept the characterization the same. So as they go on, Reed has a strong will, but he does have some points where he's not always as confident about certain things, but it's very slight. You know, She-Hulk, she needed to have this moment where she had her struggles in the series. The Thing, we get to see him, you know, we get to see how resourceful and intelligent he is on his own. This is one of the powers of the series. I think a lot of people are not seeing, well, ultimately, I don't think the series would have lasted longer if it was done more like Byrne series. After Byrne was gone, it was kind of like an MMA type of comic. People say wrestling or MMA, those things are popular. Well, not in comic books, because the series was ended after issue 36, and it ends with like a really dynamic artist in Paul Neary. He did Captain America, but at the same time, he, you know, okay, so let's get to, since we're at this, we're so long into it, let me just give you the ending of it, right? So, Byrne at this point, towards the end, after Hero, he ran into some things while he was doing the Superman series, right? So when he was doing this, it was approved, the plot was approved, and then when they announced that he was doing Superman at the same time, which was approved by the publisher, Mike Hobson. So Jim Shooter said that they needed to be redrawing here, right? So everyone has kind of done this. So the only thing I can give you new is that you haven't heard, that it's written by you know who, and then the middle is this. Well, that's not new, but the middle is by Jackson Geis, kind of copy Byrne. I'll try to make it sort of similar, but it was obvious it's Jackson Geis. But Jim Shooter had turned to Byrne and say he had to do the redrawing. And Byrne said back to him, well, tell me what's wrong with it, because it was approved and I don't have time to redo it. So if you could tell me why, then I could understand. But as of right now, I don't got time to redraw that. Whether it being him pushing back in the office, Jim Shooter was like he was going to fire him right on the spot. Obviously, that didn't work out because he ultimately didn't do the redrawing, right? But someone said he was almost fired for not redrawing it, which is kind of ridiculous. But what else can I show you? So yeah, so as it's going on, thinking you start to see some more art corrections in his work, where I was like, as a kid, I didn't really understand it, because I was just like, you're the writer, the artist, what do you do? I understand when Stan would have, you know, his people make a big deal. Oh wow, he somehow did the Superman cover in like he kind of pulled the wool over Marvel's eyes. Who doesn't know that is based on that? Like, come on, it's like ridiculous. But like when Stan Lee would ask for Romita pages or Romita romance pages. Oh yeah, this when Sue got after the post mullet stage for Sue. Good Lord! But here we have a Romita moment for here that shouldn't be there. I don't know why it's there. We got another kind of Romita face here. Yeah, Sue was killing it with this period. The Invisible Woman stage. Good Lord. The short hair, there's a corner box that Byrne was going to redo when the Thing came back, but that never made it to there. So this cover, Byrne's cover was rejected. So we have this one here. which is not as dynamic. And I think there's a bunch of other art corrections in here. Here's another Romita moment, right? It's just like, and I seen the original of this, and I was just like, why did they need to have a Romita moment? So at some point, I think Byrne bailed on this issue, but I guess maybe because of the art corrections. But Al Gordon had said, you know, he kind of had to do finishing on this stuff. But you know, it's he ultimately left to make it easier on Mike Carlin. Do we have the? Well, here's the credits. So Mike Carlin was the editor, and then Mike Carlin was fired soon after. And Jim Shooter said that he was incompetent. Same with Denny O'Neil. It was Byrne's exit shouldn't have led to that much stuff going wrong at Marvel, but you know, that's ultimately, in my opinion, I only can say there's people pushing back on Shooter when he was about to come back to the Legion of Superheroes, and well, that's only opinion. I can't say that, but yeah. So that's the fallout of Byrne leaving, and I think that's as much as I can give you. So you got the art that was cool. You have the storytelling, which was he wasn't just doing villain of the month fights. He was doing, you know, like different type of stories that sometimes that weren't, like he did a Inhuman story that hinted that there was a war, and people were like, why didn't we see the war? But they were getting something where people said, oh, another fight. So he was kind of trying to give you different things, but he was also giving you the villains hitting the Baxter Building type of stories. They were all in there, but he was kind of keeping that feel of the original series, and you know, with his fame, with his storytelling. Even though while it was going on, people were very crabby about the art, or whether the art was better than the X-Men and this, that, and the other. And with him gone, it became second to Stan and Jack. Now, I think Mark Waid has a run that was memorable. Jonathan Hickman, his run is memorable to a lot of fans. For me, the Walter Simonson run was memorable. I didn't like much of Englehart's, but I will highlight this issue, which I'm going to do at some point. These couple of issues of Ben with no powers. That's kind of like, this type of writing was what he should have been doing. Scott Lobdell, possibly first stuff of his I really liked. I would have liked to see where he was going. I didn't like the idea he was saying that he was going to do another franchise, that the FF can be a franchise, when the FF was the franchise of Marvel. It kind of branched out from them, so at least tone wise. So I think that's it. So you had art, storytelling, and characterization. Trying to keep the characterization that was in the original series, because Kirby didn't give up the fact that Ben and Alicia had this issue. They were in the they were in one of those, a needy relationship between the two of them. But at the same time, in my mind, Alicia became a much stronger character, right? Because I don't think she got too many stories outside of a 2-in-1 where they do a Warlock story. The Stan and Jack did many stories with Alicia, and she would get some spotlight with the Silver Surfer and also him. And this is possibly, since Kirby left, this story here is the first one where she took center stage, where everyone was beaten up, and she was always someone who had, was kind of not really like Daredevil, but could get around even though she was blind. So this is kind of her coming out thing. where she was, after she was beaten up and done dirty by Annihilus, she would kind of have this thing where the thing is gone, and she's trying to find him, and she makes her way, and she's careful, right? She's traveling, but the city's a mess, and somehow she's not a hero, but she does have some spirit to her, right? And she runs into this character that she realizes, well, it hasn't come up yet, but she's trying to track him down. Oh, she ran into this. She gets a little help. And this guy, somehow, this person took over the thing. And he's telling him about this guy that's messing up. And she already knows that madman is the thing. So this is having someone that is totally relentless, using the thing's powers and what he could do if he just kind of cut loose. And goes to Alicia, goes to the police. They're trying to figure things out. And she's going to go there to stop him. And she wants to go, and the police department will not take her there. They are just like, it's too dangerous, right? He goes to the United Nations to state his claims of what he wants, or else he's going to be messing up everything, right? And then while they're talking to him, he said, "You are the mortal president of my rebirth." He said, "I know more than that. I know that you have no claim to the body. You inhabit no claim." And Ms. Masters confronts him, right? And she kind of forces her will on him and tells him about Ben and all of these amazing things to kind of compel him, how she had done with the Silver Surfer and Warlock, and he decides to give it up, and then the thing comes back and turns normal. And he says, "Oh my, Ben, darling Ben, it's you. Sure, it's me. Who else could it be?" What a powerful ending. The next issue is a lot tougher because it's the breakup. But I think that's it. I gave you an hour. There's so much stuff in this run to even give you that. But I gave you a few comics. I didn't do I think I did did I do the last Galactus story once? I don't know. But that's my start. An hour-long thing. No pun intended on there. So while we're here, let's get into the last Galactus story. Let's get into the She-Hulk, the last Galactus stories, and then we're gonna get to